Hello there and welcome to People in Power. I'm Felicity Barr. On today's programme, standoff in Bahrain.
I think they're going to target one by one. Whoever appeared on a camera, the thing is we stand brave enough to call the whole world that we don't want this regime to be in power anymore.
Pro-democracy activists in the Gulf state of Bahrain have been on the streets of the capital, Manama, for 4 weeks now. But they've yet to win the kind of dramatic results achieved by their counterparts in Egypt and Tunisia. At first, their demands were for constitutional reform and a reduction of the powers of King Hamad and the Al Khalifa ruling family. But opinion hardened after attempted government crackdowns in the first days of the protest saw 7 demonstrators killed. Although the army then withdrew and the regime began calling for dialogue, many protesters now want an end to the monarchy altogether. Those protesters are drawn from all parts of Bahraini society, but matters are further complicated by the fact that while the ruling dynasty is Sunni, the majority Shia population have long complained of political persecution. With America, which sees Bahrain as a key ally, and nearby Saudi Arabia and Iran all having a strategic interest, the stakes are high. But as reporter John D. McHugh discovered, the young activists who are driving the protests are determined not to back down.
Since February 14th, following the fall of presidents of Egypt and Tunisia, thousands of protesters have been gathering at Bahrain's Pearl Roundabout, also known as Lulu Roundabout. Demonstrators have been calling for reform of the political system, which keeps power in the hands of the ruling Al Khalifa family, who have ruled for 230 years. The protest was called for on the internet by young activists like Dr. Nada Daif, who set up this medical tent with other young volunteers.
It was just a Facebook call. It's totally youth behind it. I called my people, everybody called their people. Okay, so there is no political background about it. Let's go in the streets and let's demand for our rights. This is our golden chance. It's the time. It's time we grab it. Either we grab it now or never.
This is the February 14th movement. Young, educated and apolitical. They say it's not a revolution about poverty, but about fairness. 3 days later, people were still sleeping at the roundabout. Then, everything changed.
I was sleeping with my friends, and then it took me just like seconds, and to see like the policemen coming up from the bridge and attacking and shooting without any warnings, without anything. They start shooting us with a tear gas.
That's when me and my father tried to take my sister out of the medical tent, but the riot police kept hitting him and beating him with these sticks. And one of the riot police, the other one, was shouting at my face, and the third one was threw a tear gas under my legs.
That moment, at least 10 of the policemen came and attacked me, and they continued hitting. I couldn't resist anything. I was bleeding. I tasted the blood of myself, but this wasn't a sign for them to stop. They were shouting Allahu Akbar, that they like, killing someone which doesn't deserve to live. And the only thing which stopped them, that I pretended I was completely dead.
Because it's my first time to protest, it's my first time to see riot police live. They are really savages. It's horrible what happened here.
4 people died that night. Hundreds more were beaten, shot and nearly suffocated by tear gas, including doctors who were trying to help.
Did you tell them you were a doctor?
Yeah, but they don't listen. And I was wearing the uniform for the doctors.
Saeed Ahmed said he couldn't get to hospital later. Ambulances had been stopped from helping injured protesters.
We called the private hospitals to check if they're willing to take me. And they said, please, we cannot send an ambulance to you because there is a message by the Minister of Internals that none of the injured from the protests are welcome in any of the hospitals.
The army had cleared the camp, but the protesters would not give up. The next morning, they walked back to the roundabout. Security forces were blocking their way. Condemned across the world, the regime was shamed into pulling the security forces off the streets. Just days earlier, King Hamad had made a rare TV appearance, regretting the previous deaths.
In respect with what happened yesterday and today in the regrettable events, and they were the death of two of our countrymen, our sons. This makes us extend our condolences to their families.
When the protesters reclaimed the Lulu roundabout, they were furious. Calls for political reform had been replaced by demands for the ousting of the king and the end of the Al Khalifa family regime. Everyone is desperate to tell the world what happened.
It shows all the people who is terrorists, Bahraini citizens or the government. He was standing here and he was raising his two hands. He was raising his two hands, nothing in his hands, but they shoot him. And they used to say peaceful, 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 and they shoot him by the tanks here, by the army. This is the area. This is this guy, a young guy, a peaceful guy. 230 years they are here in Bahrain. Every time they are promising us to give our rights, but we are not getting anything.
So you don't trust them anymore?
No way. Nobody, not only me. All the Bahrainis. All the Bahrainis.
There have been demonstrations against the Al Khalifa regime for years, with Bahrain's Shia majority demanding equal democratic rights in this Sunni-ruled kingdom. Frustrated young men out on the streets calling for access to jobs, housing and political representation.
I was considered as one of the top students in the country, and this is why I was offered a scholarship to study in the UK. And then I had another opportunity to work in England as well as a professional engineer. And the moment I returned back, I think I was completely shocked that I wasn't even welcomed in my own country. I suffered from unemployment for at least 6 months, not because I wasn't qualified, not because I didn't have the right experience. The only reason was my name. CV is perfect, but your family name is a problem because you belong to a Shiite family.
There is no doubt that this sense of grievance over discrimination is one cause of this uprising. Virtually no Shia are accepted into the police or army. The king brings Sunni immigrants from abroad to police the streets, giving them citizenship and housing.
Our army are not really native Bahrainis. They all brought over from different countries. So their loyalty is not really to the country. The army is fully controlled by the king himself, and his agenda are the agenda which has to be followed.
Last summer, demonstrations came to an end when the government clamped down, rounding up over 400 people and putting 25 on trial for allegedly plotting a coup, including the Bahrain blogger Ali Abdelimam. In a major concession to the protesters, the regime freed Abdelimam and other alleged coup plotters, along with 200 political prisoners. Abdelimam was imprisoned for 6 months. For the first 4 weeks he was held incommunicado, no contact with his family and no access to a lawyer. He says this was the time he was tortured.
The faylaqa, which is the hardest thing, they put something under your leg and then they just tied your legs, then they put handcuff in your hand, and your hand should be like here, and the baby is coming from your hands, coming across your legs, then to other hand, then they put you like this, and my face should be like this, and they hit you in your feet and legs until you give up. And your hands should be like this.
All those accused of plotting the coup confessed under similar torture.
This is what they call it, their professional way of investigating and getting the information.
This experience of detention is typical of prisoner testimony in Bahrain. He had previously been arrested in 2005 for having started his popular Bahrain online website without an official permit.
In 2005, I spent more than 13 hours from my investigation trying to explain for the investigator and the prosecution what is the internet. In 2005, but after 5 years, they don't know anything about IT still.
While the authorities don't understand technology, the February 14th movement certainly does.
I have to admit it, our generation, when we started the 90s Intifada, we couldn't get into that limit. We were not brave so much like these people. I have to just, what they call it, remove my cap, respecting them.
Yeah.
These are the new generation, the internet generation, and this is this revolution coming from the internet.
Yeah.
iPhone is our weapon because we can get all the news, we can be chat together, all our communication, make our life it's too easy.
This technology means everyone knows what's going on, instantly, wherever they are. Even Bahrainis who weren't at the roundabout saw the images of the shooting and the horrific aftermath. They were uploaded to the internet from protesters' mobile phones and were broadcast around the world immediately.
اختي بعيوني جبت البي دي اف قاعدين بهذا الاتجاه. اوكي اختي كلهم عندهم رشاشات على الارض مقعده.
The impact of Abda Ali Al Singas, telling his story in his blood-soaked shirt, can't be overestimated. It's become one of the iconic images of the protest. The power of technology is giving a voice to the people that the government can't control.
The point is, there is no center. It's not centralized. No, it's many heads together. There are thousands of heads, thousands of decisions, thousands of organizations. You cannot target one person and, okay, so this is the one responsible for 14th February, I'll pull them out, I can deal with them. This hidden force is managed by thousands of youth, smart brains. And that's the mega force and power of the 14th February, I believe. Something that all the political societies, though they worked many years, they just couldn't put all of us together.
There are, however, politicians in the crowd. Ibrahim Sharif is leader of the opposition Wa'ad party and takes part in the present parliamentary system which the protesters want reformed. He's been at the protests from the start.
Is this a youth movement that is being supported by political groups, or is this a political movement that has embraced the youth?
It's the first one. It's a youth movement. They were ahead of us. We have to acknowledge that. These guys have been on the internet for, since Egypt started. And they chose a very good date, actually. 14th of February is the date of a constitutional coup d'etat of 2002.
Sharif is a Sunni, but those around him seem a mixed group. The message of the protesters is clear. The February 14th movement is about unity, not sectarianism. But the king is warning that protests will lead to the sectarian abyss and has raised the spectre of neighbouring Shiite Iran taking over the country.
بالنسبة لنا نسأل الشباب أحافيكم يبي دولة دينية يقول لك لا. أحافيكم يبي دولة مثل إيران ولا يبي دولة مثل
لا.
It's a powerful bogeyman for countries across the globe, not least the US, which has a major naval base here. But it's something the protesters want to refute.
الشباب اللي هني في الدوار ما عندهم شيء ضد الطائفة السنية. إذا كنتوا أنتم متكتلين تعتقدون أنه تبون تحمون السنة، فأول ناس مستعدين يحمون السنة الشباب في الدوار. ما تبون نوصل لهم الكلام؟ نعم. ما تبون نوصل لهم إن الشباب هني لما رحنا لهم قلنا لهم أحد فيكم يبي دولة دينية على طريقة إيران قالوا لنا لا ما نبي يمكن في لا نقول اكيد في قليل
ما في ولا قليل
حتى العلماء ما في.
This sentiment is echoed by young activists at Lulu Roundabout.
We were accused by the Sunnis that we don't want Al Khalifa here because we want to bring Iran here. And it's ridiculous. There's no way we replace a dictator with another dictator. Bahrain is a free country. It will remain a free country. It's for all Bahrainis, no matter what you are, whether if you're Sunni, whether if you're Shia, whether if you're Jew, whether if you're Christian. It's for everybody.
The Al Khalifa royal family is offering dialogue, but with 7 people killed and hundreds more injured, the protesters feel the time for talking has passed. A group of 6 political parties is discussing preconditions for talks, but the young people here are clear. Her sign reads, "Don't ignore us, we don't want dialogue."
There is nothing such as dialogue with the one which has murdered the Bahraini people. There isn't anything such as dialogue with the criminals. I believe Al Khalifa is just like cancer, and the way how we're gonna deal with this regime is exactly the same way how we treat ourselves from cancer. So the only way is to cut them off and heal completely from them.
There is good reason for scepticism about dialogue. In 2001, as discussions for a new democratic constitution were underway, the king unilaterally imposed the current disputed political system. Even the parties involved in the talks have doubts about the king's integrity.
Some of the people here are very worried that if we go into dialogue, the government or the regime will give us a deal and then we'll renege on the deal. They remember the 2001 when the national charter was agreed in a referendum, only to find out that a year later, on 14th of February 2002, that the king also reneged on the promise of the national charter. And so they're telling us they will trick you, they will trick you.
Hassan Mushema, head of the outlawed Haq political party, has been in and out of prison for years. He recently returned from the UK, is clearly respected by the people, and has chosen to boycott the talks. He knows the Al Khalifa family better than most, having dealt with them for over 40 years.
We met the king himself in London, and we sat together, we talked about the necessity of dialogue. And I told him, I said to him that we have rights, we have demands. Let us sit at the table, discuss everything, and then of course we'll cooperate together to build our country. But unfortunately, after that, when I came back home, they arrested me. See, what kind of people are these? Al Khalifa's or the regime is not believing of democracy, is not believing of human rights, is not believing of dialogue. So it's they want to show the world that we have discussed and we have started, of course, the dialogue, which is not true. Some people in America and others, they believe them. They know it's not true, but they believe them. They say, okay, why don't you go to the dialogue? And there is no dialogue.
Down with the monarchy! Down with the monarchy!
On Monday, March 7th, protesters went to the US Embassy, well aware how much influence the Americans have with King Hamad. They say Washington's pro-monarchy approach is supporting the oppression.
Stop supporting dictators! Stop supporting dictators! Stop supporting dictators!
Embassy staff came out to listen to their views. But the US has praised King Hamad for his restraint in pulling back security forces. They said that he has earned the right to pursue a solution through dialogue. The protesters are determined to change Washington's mind. With the Americans taking a much tougher approach to Libya, Bahrainis are asking the question, why are there double standards over what should be done when a ruler is caught killing his unarmed citizens?
Muammar Gaddafi has lost legitimacy to lead, and he must leave. Those who perpetrate violence against the Libyan people will be held accountable. And the aspirations of the Libyan people for freedom, democracy, and dignity must be met.
I have a really important message to the world readers. Mr. Obama, especially to Mr. Obama, where is your support? Why are you supporting the call of dialogue? None of us is calling for dialogue. We have a clear message that we don't want this regime anymore. And if we are the majority, I think we deserve this change. They are calling al-Qaddafi as a killer of his people. I think al-Khalifa are more threatening to us.
This is a standoff between two equally entrenched sides. Both have so much to lose, they won't give in. So it seems that international pressure will be the deciding factor. The question is, which side will they back?
So what you'll do with the people who said, we are ready to die? You'll kill all of them? As I said, maybe before, the people were afraid. They don't want to go, to the jail or prison. They don't want to be injured or killed. But this time, really, the people, and especially the young people, they said, this time is something else.
Actually, I don't have faith in them. After the bloody Thursday, we don't want them anymore. At the first, we were asking for correction or making everything better, but now we don't want them. I think that open fire on his public, he don't deserve to be a king anymore.
يلا شباب يلا يلا شباب يلا. This is one of the victims. This is police and Al Khalifa government. They said they want dialogue. This is dialogue. Tell Khalifa and Hamad, this is dialogue. They are liar. They are not liar. They are killer. They should go away. No chance.
The protesters are marching on state-owned Bahrain TV, complaining about the biased coverage of their campaign. Abda Ali Al-Singas, in his blood-soaked shirt, cradled a dying man in his arms. As a result, he's more desperate than most to keep people on the streets, to sustain pressure on the regime. The worry among protesters is that if dialogue is accepted, it will drag on. International attention will shift elsewhere, and in the meantime, those that spoke out will be targeted. And this isn't Egypt or Tunisia. Behind the bland exterior gate is a security force that is not minded to change sides. If the system doesn't change, and if past performance is anything to go by, these protesters, who have put their heads above the parapet to challenge their regime, will be in serious jeopardy.
Well, what would happen if this revolution didn't work? I think we're gonna be destroyed with all means. I think they're gonna target one by one. Whoever appeared on a camera, the thing is, we stand brave enough to call the whole world that we don't want this regime to be in power anymore. So I think they have enough evidence. Whoever speak against them would be a target for them in the future. So I think it's gonna be really dangerous. And I believe it's all about win or die.
And that's it for this edition of People in Power. If you'd like to comment on this film or anything else, then we'd love to hear from you on aljazeera.net/English. Until next time, goodbye.